Hello, Brubs. We're back with Anyone's Son, a true story by Roberta Roche with Harry De La Roche Jr., the murderer. November 28th, 1976, Chapter 6, 115 pages in. Section 14. The fog was still heavy a short time later, yet almost a lifetime later when I got back into my mother's car and headed for the Montvale police. By now I've told 1,000 times, or so it seems to me, how I met Patrolman Olson down by the village green and jumped from the car to yell at him, "Quick, come up to my house. I've just found my parents and younger brother dead, and my middle brother missing." After Olson followed me back to the house and sent for additional help, I stayed there till Captain Hanna drove me to the Montvale headquarters at 6:30 a.m. When we arrived at the station, I was told I could leave at 11 and maybe go to a relative's if I had somewhere to go. There weren't many relatives I could call, and my grandmother was too old, but I asked Captain Hanna to place a call to my Uncle John Greer in Maywood, even though it had been years since I'd seen my uncle and aunt. The call wasn't placed immediately, though, since the first calls went out to Ronnie's friends to see if they knew where he was. I was also told I'd be fingerprinted for the purpose of elimination. At different points throughout the day, I was fingerprinted twice. I was questioned intermittently, starting at 7:30 by Sergeant Parisi of the New Jersey State Police and Investigator Del Preet of the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office. Detective O'Donovan was in and out. Apparently, around 8 a.m., they saw the state I was in, so they left me alone in the lobby by Chief Hecker's office. There was a cop behind the desk, but he didn't bother me when he saw that I was crying while I was by myself. That was the only time all day that they let me be alone. When the questioning started up again, I was shuffled back and forth between rooms till after 10 a.m., and when I noted it was 10:45 and I hadn't seen Uncle John, I spoke to Captain Hanna about calling him again. Captain Hanna didn't want to make the call, so I got on the phone myself. When a man's voice answered, I plunged right in and said, "Uncle John, this is Harry." At first, he didn't recognize me. It had been a long while, so I told him my name a second time, and then I said in a broken voice, "Dad, Mom, and Eric are shot, and I'm at the Montvale police station." Uncle John was obviously stunned, but he answered, "We'll be right there." Later, my Aunt Arden told me he looked so shaken and white he had to sit down and compose himself before they rushed to the station. She thought the call might be a hoax, so she took an extra minute to place a call to the Montvale cops to see if possibly what they'd heard had been an anonymous crank call. When she learned that it was the truth, they came to see me at once. But though they arrived by 11, they were told that I was busy, and maybe they could see me later. I asked the cops if they had arrived, but they said the Greers weren't there. About 11, I reminded the cops they'd mentioned I could leave at that time, but the cops explained they weren't through at the house, so I'd have to wait a while. I noticed they kept their eyes on me, and now, looking back at this day, I know I was technically under arrest long before anyone said so. While I was still at the station, someone suggested a lie detector test at the prosecutor's office in Hackensack. "Take it," one of the cops advised. "It will prove your innocence." By then, I was moving around like a zombie and starting to feel really dazed. I thought if I said no to the test, they'd think I had something to hide. So I felt forced to say, "Yes, I'll take it whenever you want me to." But then I noted it was 11:18 and suddenly a new face appeared. I was told it was Edward Salbin, a court reporter, who'd been called in to take a formal statement concerning the questions I'd answered in the morning's interrogations. I hadn't talked to anyone but cops since 4 o'clock that morning, and as I'd never been at a station and asked to give a statement, I was unfamiliar with the United States Supreme Court's 1966 Miranda ruling. As a result, I agreed to repeat what I'd said for the record. The Miranda warnings, as I learned too late, protect your constitutional rights and limit police in obtaining confessions from a suspect. They include 5 points and a waiver if they are given to you, and if you continue talking after saying you understand them, you surrender your right to remain silent under the Fifth Amendment. When I finally learned what they were, I learned that the 5 points and waivers state you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer and have him present with you while you are being questioned. If you cannot afford to hire a lawyer, one will be appointed to represent you before any questioning. If you wish one, you may stop answering questions at any time. Waiver. After the waiver, and in order to secure a waiver, the following questions should be asked and an affirmative reply secured to each question. Do you understand each of these rights I have explained to you? Having these rights in mind, do you wish to talk to us now? No officer read these rights to me, and nobody mentioned a lawyer. Though if one had been there beside me, the cops would have taken it easier, and there wouldn't have been any way in the world that I would have talked like I did. Not knowing, I gave the following statement at the Montvale Police Headquarters. It ran a total of 64 pages. Parts of the statement follow. Question, Harry De La Roche, Jr. Right. Question, I am Investigator Frank Delpreet of the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office. This is Detective Michael O'Donovan of the Montvale Police Department. We would like to take down a statement from you, a sworn statement concerning the death of your parents, Mr. and Mrs. Harry De La Roche, and your brother, Eric. Are you willing to give us a sworn statement at this time? Answer, yes, I am. Following this, I was sworn in by the court reporter. Then I answered questions about my activities from the time I went to Lodi on Friday. When we got to Saturday evening, Delpreet asked about changing cars. Question, did Jeff go to your home to pick up your mother's car? A, no, he didn't. There was another guy, a friend of Jeff's and mine, who came to my house drunk the other day, and my mother didn't really want me hanging around him. So I told Jeff to go down to the 7-Eleven, which is down the road from me, and I would meet him there. I went into the house. I told my mother I needed the car keys. My father asked me, did I know Ronnie smokes marijuana? And I said, I don't know. He said he found some, and he said he was going to turn Ronnie into the police. I was disgusted at what he said, at turning in my brother, his own son. And then he mentioned something about Ronnie saying burying my father under his bed. Probably because that's where Ronnie kept the pot and money and the supplies. Question, how did you know Ronnie kept the pot, the money, and the supplies under the bed? Answer, well, he had a box full of scales, bags, rolling papers, or rolling machine, and some of the bags had marijuana, and he showed me a Pascack Hills gym bag, which had money in it. There were $100 bills in little bundles with rubber bands around them. When did Ronnie show you this bag and the scales? Answer, he showed me the box and money around the second night I was there, the first or second night I was home. Question, how did he come to show it to you? You were talking about pot and drugs. Answer, well, I knew that he was getting a little burnout. He was selling it all. I told him he better cut it out, and he said he wanted to show me what he had, and I said, well, okay. So he did, and I let it go at that. Question, when your father told you about this, he asked you, do you know if Ronnie smokes pot? Answer, he asked me, yes. Question, what were his exact words to you? Try to remember that. Answer, I can't be sure of the exact words because I knew he was going to get caught sooner or later, and it was just that my father knew and trouble was coming. Question, was your father mad? Was he really mad when he told you this? Answer, he seemed like he was upset that my brother wouldn't do that because one of his colleagues who worked, his son had dropped grades really low, hanging out with the wrong people, and after he smelled pot and his father found out. The same for my brother. His grades all went down and he got interims in all his subjects. But the thing that really bothered me was my own father would turn in my brother. And I was thinking I just had to get out of there. I couldn't listen to that. I was going to come back today before I went to the Citadel and say, you turn him in. I'm not going to the Citadel. I can't let you turn him in. After this discussion, I accounted for the rest of the evening after leaving the Maximus. Answer, I got into Route 17 to drive around in the area of Seven Lakes Parkway. That was the last place I drove before I first went to school. So then I started heading back and I came to the Dairy Queen in Montvale. There are 2 overpasses on which the parkway passes over. By Summit Avenue, I went under the first overpass off the side road and finished some beer I had in my car. I then drove home and I happened to take my watch out of my pocket. It was 4:01. Next, I talked about going upstairs and passing my parents' room. Answer, I had to pass my parents' room to get to mine, and I happened to look inside my parents' room, and I noticed only one person was laying in bed. I knew my father wasn't in the upstairs bedroom, so I decided to take a look and see what was up. I turned on the light and I found my mother in bed. I then went into my brother's room, found my father lying in my brother's bed and my youngest brother, Eric, lying on the floor with no sign of my other brother, Ronnie. Question, why did you choose the light in your mother's bedroom? Why didn't you put on your light rather than, maybe wake her up with the bedroom light on if she was sleeping? Answer, well, like I can't see anything out of my bedroom if I put my light on, and I knew something was up because my father wasn't there, and I didn't hear him moving around, so I thought he might have gone out for something or whatever. So then I found that, and when I saw my brother, I thought I was going to get sick. And that's the end of that section. These next sections aren't very long, but I will wait because I'm going to buy some more books because that's what I do. Goodbye, Bobs. Goodbye.